Cost of Victory, Book 1 of the Unseen Scar series by C.R. Saxon. Chapter 2. An eternity passed as Ferdinand stood by the farthest window, shaking, waiting for his ally to arrive. What was taking so long? The sooner this meeting started, the sooner it'd be over, and Ferdinand could get away from the threat before him. Better yet, the sooner he could get away and appease his aching muscles. "Are you okay, Lord Ferdinand?" Cringing deeper away from the superintendent, Ferdinand swallowed hard. "I'm fine." Relief blanketed them both when the secretary's voice announced the Dinta's arrival. Within moments, John walked up and bowed to the man. "John Dinta, have a seat, please." The superintendent motioned to a chair facing his desk. Though the skeletal Ferdinand remained standing by the window, John complied, frowning at the blatant disrespect. Ferdinand's nervousness around healers was well known among the islands, but telepaths and mind-talkers, psychs of either kind, were nearly as bad. If Deo were a telepath, the Tinkerer wouldn't be here. The only reason he could handle being near the man was the fact that mind-talkers had to put effort into accessing another's mind, and the one being scanned could usually fill it. "Thank you for coming so quickly. With the assembly today, this was the easiest time to meet." Dea gritted back a flinch, giving John the opportunity to voice his confusion. "Assembly?" "Yes, the assembly for Family Week assignments. Wasn't that a while ago? A good bit happened here while you two were gone. With things settling down, we're trying to get back on track." Breathing deeply, the superintendent started into the most important part of this meeting. "I want to thank both of you. Your hard work impressed my brother, and healer Raderick." "Thank you, sir," John said as Ferdinand lowered his head. "You especially, Lord Ferdinand." Dea turned to the student who refused to sit. "The things you did were amazing. We can't possibly be grateful enough." Gaze on the floor, Ferdinand hid behind his overgrown, shaggy hair. All those tattooed accomplishments were even more intimidating when trapped in his office. "Thanking you for incompetence. How generous." "I was hired to make the second skin. It took so long. I don't deserve thanks." "You know that's not what I'm talking about." Concern took over Dea's face. "When you asked to help your friend, I never thought it would turn into such an ordeal. I'm truly impressed. And I'm deeply sorry for your loss. If there's any—" "I didn't work on the blight," Ferdinand stated firmly, keeping his gaze down. John tensed, face twisting. Nodding his head, Dea answered, "I understand. You didn't hear about the virus until everyone else did." "How can you say that?" John yelled. "You were the only one trying to stop it." Burning red, head to toe, Ferdinand leaned against the window and looked outside. "I wasn't the only one." "The more people who know. You don't want that, do you? Despite all your posturing about taking responsibility." "Shut up. They didn't try till the end. You saved countless lives," John insisted, frustration marking every word. He should have stopped John from grabbing that screen, but his ally would have pressed for answers. At least this way, Ferdinand could remain heartless. He could drive the Dinta further away. Shock blanketed John. He needs to leave now, before he really gets hurt. Bracing himself, Ferdinand put on a mask of annoyance and boredom, calculating his words. He'd drive the older boy away, regardless of how much it hurt. "I nearly failed to fulfill the last request of an old friend," Ferdinand mumbled, curling inward, trying to escape the unbidden memory. Surprise and concern knit Dea's eyebrows together. "If you don't want others knowing you were involved, then we won't say anything." "What?" John thought as he looked back and forth between the two. "He nearly drove us both mad fighting that horrible disease. I don't understand." "You don't have to understand," Ferdinand muttered, hand flicking away something near his ear. "You couldn't anyway." Try as he might, the Dinta couldn't find a response. What haunted him for weeks was realizing how little he understood Ferdinand. Knowing this didn't help, neither did his abilities as a thinker. It just left him discouraged and resenting the gent. Why won't he believe me? None of this was his fault. Silence hung heavy between the three until Dea banished it. "Concerning your schoolwork, you were gone longer than anticipated." A grimace nearly doubled over Ferdinand. Odd twitches, constantly looking over his shoulder, covering his ears. Those strange behaviors came out of nowhere, scaring John. When Healer Bear tried approaching the skeleton, the tics lessened, but... "With 2 weeks left in the block, I've arranged an extension with your instructors. You have till the end of break to finish your coursework. Exams and projects for your non-science classes are waived. The work you did the last 3 months adequately covers your final project. Will there be a problem with this arrangement?" "No, sir. That's quite generous," John answered. "Classwork wasn't difficult. A little research, then submit." "And you, Lord Ferdinand?" Ferdinand winced. "I don't need an extension." "You're done?" "There's no way. We were too stressed to focus on anything. When did you have time?" "There were so many delays." "You did coursework on top of everything else." Dea blinked in awe. Anguish cut deeper into Ferdinand's face, forcing his attention back to the window. John Dinta, I want to thank you personally for attending to Ferdinand's health these past months. I know the deal you made with Healer Bayer, but Master Dimmerit will happily take over. I'm concerned it's too much. I made a promise, sir. John's jaw twitched in irritation. For 3 months of effort, his ally looked worse than when they left. I've no intentions of telling my family I reneged on a promise to an ally. Ferdinand swallowed hard, but said nothing, flinching at something. If you insist, I expect regular updates on Ferdinand's weight, and I'd like to meet with you every 2 weeks for more detailed reports. Things were getting awkward, so Dea ended there. I know you're both exhausted. I can't even imagine. I'd suggest attending the assembly, but after, you should rest. Please take the next few days to recover. You can return to classes next week. Yes, sir. Rest? Could he really rest? It seemed like an impossible dream, but all John had to do was find his island brothers. He'd cook an elaborate meal, and they'd eat and talk. No complaining, no throwing his food away, no arguing. Just the 5 of them, relaxing and laughing together. Ah, that sounded like paradise. The only way it'd be better was if his actual brothers were here too. Thank you for coming, John Dinta. I'll get in touch with you to schedule a meeting. Till then, contact me with any concerns. Yes, sir. Lord Ferdinand, I need to discuss something with you. A small nod acknowledged the request, but Ferdinand didn't look up. Standing stoically, he waited for John to leave. Please sit, Lord Ferdinand. The request sounded more tired than the tinkerer expected, so Ferdinand made his way to a chair, tripping and slamming his knee against the side table. Flinching, Dea paid the fall as much mind as his student did. The incident in your literature class reached me after you left. Yes, sir, a lifetime passed since that happened, but there was no taking back his choice. I talked to Master Kezia. She was rather upset. I understand, sir. How often do you cause trouble? Shut up. I don't think you do. I want to hear from you what happened before I proceed. Sighing, Ferdinand spoke. I thought the poem we were assigned to read and interpret was odd, so I did some research. With my findings, I wrote a paper, but she wanted a report. I couldn't lie to her, and I couldn't pass on presenting. Even though I knew I'd hurt everyone, I didn't even apologize. Stunned, Dea looked at his student. You're saying you're the one at fault? Yes, sir. Do you remember I said I talked to Master Kezia? Yes, sir. What does he want? Give me my punishment and send me on. Do punishments work on someone like you? We did some research and found your aunt's book is authentic. I sent it back to her, by the way. Thank you, sir. Master Kezia was at fault. She admitted this much to me, reluctantly, but still. I told her to apologize to you. She shouldn't apologize. She changed the nature of the assignment and wouldn't accept when you mentioned this to her. She then got angry with you for going above and beyond the requirements. She tried embarrassing you in front of the class and make you admit to something wrong. As propriety calls for, she needs to apologize in the same public manner as the offenses she committed. I don't want her to apologize. Ferdinand looked away. Why didn't the man understand? This threw the superintendent off, knitting his eyebrows in worry. For as miserable as Ferdinand usually looked, the child was more wretched now. Then what do you want? I want to be done. Ferdinand pulled what looked like a small sheet of glass from his pocket and started typing. I finished a while ago. I don't want to have to keep taking these classes. The offered screen hosted a list of everything Ferdinand had studied. For a long moment the skeleton stood, heart terrified to beat, to hope. Those hematite eyes looked over the information once, then twice. Was it unbelievable he could accomplish that much? It wasn't difficult. And now, instead of taking useless classes, Ferdinand wanted to focus on teaching his apprentice and fulfilling the requests he received, spending his days immersed in research and inventing and building. Greedy child. Ferdinand flinched. That voice was right. This was a mistake. He should have kept his head down like always. What was I thinking? Why did I do something so stupid? When did you do all this? Did it matter when? He'd been here 3 years longer than other students his age. But that question was surprising. It spoke volumes to how little the school kept track of him. Despite being a useless son, Ferdinand was grateful to the Duchess for this. Everything hit so quickly before they left. He hadn't faced the consequences of his actions, and now they were simply ignored. I was wrong. I did horrible things. Why aren't they punishing me? To Ferdinand's dismay, his ally was waiting when he stepped into the hall. Jaw tight, John stared down the skeleton. Let's go. Go where? John huffed in frustration. The assembly? I don't know about you, but it'd be nice knowing what role we'll be fulfilling next block. All Ferdinand wanted to do was hole up in his lab and lock the door. Instead, he followed John outside toward the boats. A gasp caught his attention. Looking around, Ferdinand saw an older boy clenching his stomach on one knee, a few yards from the infirmary. A fellow scientist, and an impossibly handsome boy named Norger, dashed forward, voice urgent. "You okay, Gusak?" "Yeah, give me a moment." John was nearly at the boats and hadn't noticed, but Ferdinand couldn't tear those blue crystals away. He'd witnessed that look for months. Jolts of pain shook Norger, too. No, after all I did to keep John away. Times like these, the skeleton wished he had normal hearing. Ferdinand shook his head, panting, shaking, frozen. "The pain medicine's wearing off already." "Yeah, unfortunately. I'm sorry it's taking longer for you." A strained grin took over Gusak's lips. "I'm not too bad. At least the cure came in time." "Yeah." Norger looked out at the ocean, soaking in the view. "You know, I've been thinking about that. I'm sure it got here on the wind." "On the wind? Are you crazy?" Gusak gasped again, only to laugh. "The bug would have had to live in the air for weeks." "How do we know it doesn't?" Ferdinand fell. His mind raced, taking in what he just heard. No, I did my duty. I kept John away." "You sent it this way." "No, I didn't hear right. I'm missing something." But he did hear correctly. It was the only fitting explanation after learning how the blight was transmitted, and what it actually was. Stinging needles seized his shoulders, rattling him. They stopped his heart as a hand rested on his shoulder. Swinging hard at his assailant knocked away the needles. To his relief, it wasn't the dead who haunted him. To his chagrin, it was his ally, haunting him in a different way. Ferdinand scooted to put some distance between him and John. The skeleton didn't have to see the Dinta to know who it was. Though not the only person whose touch felt like countless needles stabbing through his skin, John was the only one on the islands. Bent over, hand cradling his side, John's lips moved, but Ferdinand only heard grating laughter. "What are you doing in here?" Ferdinand forced out through clenched teeth. "Shut up, shut up, shut up." "We're outside. Are you okay?" John moved closer, but kept enough distance to avoid being hit again. "I saw you fall. What's wrong?" "I tripped." The lie came so naturally, it sounded true even to himself. "No, you didn't. I saw you fall." John glared as he sifted through reasonable explanations. "You didn't eat the breakfast I gave you. I'll force feed you if I have to." "You're wrong." Erasing everything from his face, but the red taking over, Ferdinand flinched at the growing laughter. "It doesn't matter. I'm tired." With this, he pushed himself to his feet, ignoring John's protest. Not letting himself think, Ferdinand headed toward the boats. Mind empty, he didn't know where he was heading, but it didn't truly matter, so long as he stayed away from everyone. Retrieving his green tin, he grabbed a small capsule and snapped it closed. Mint filled him as he returned the tin to his pocket. A strong breeze tugged at his hair as he grabbed a boat. The wind. "Stupid, incompetent child. Don't ignore people when they're talking to you. Why are you so rude?" "What do you want, John?" Irritation filled every word. "The assembly, remember? But you could use a healer instead." Knowing how Ferdinand would react, John grabbed the gent's wrist and held on tight when his ally tried fleeing. "I'm not taking you to one, but that doesn't change—" "Don't touch me!" Ferdinand wrenched his arm hard. Poised to yell back, pain shot through John's ribs, where the gent punched him earlier. It hurt, but it cooled him off a bit. Ferdinand was the only person he'd met who couldn't stand being touched. No matter how hard he tried, John couldn't figure out why. Neither would the skeleton tell him. But then, even Ferdinand's own mom. It was rare seeing the two together, but she wouldn't touch her own son. No hug, no pat on the shoulder, nothing. It was easily the saddest thing John ever witnessed. "Come on, let's go." "Where?" Ferdinand shuddered, rubbing his wrist. "The assembly." Scared, John stepped closer. "You're worrying me." The skeleton covered his ears with bony hands before shaking his head and dropping them. "I'm fine. Just go." All but pushing Ferdinand into the boat, John took the oar and cast off. The row was short, and the day pleasant, but the trip was strained. More than once the skeleton twitched or covered his ears. The gent didn't keep them covered long, but those bony hands were blocking something, and John wasn't talking. The thinker didn't know what to do about whatever was going on with the skeleton. Who can I talk to? It's wrong suggesting, but... When they arrived, a crowd of students loitered outside the auditorium. Immediately, the skeleton tried slipping away into it. John stopped him. "Where are you going?" "There's something I need to do. I'll be there shortly. Save me a seat." Okay." Though confused, it wasn't often Ferdinand made a request other than to be left alone. "You're eating after the assembly, so don't sneak away." John headed inside to find the other science students.